Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. Big development on how the entire Red Bull operation in Formula 1 may have to be managed going forward. So there's the Red Bull Racing main team, there is Racing Bulls, VCARB, Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, whatever you want to call them. Is it a sister team? Is it a junior team? Is it a B team? That depends on who you ask. Zach Brown and McLaren may well have got their wish to effectively dramatically change how Red Bull have to run this structure going forward, and especially how RB will not be anywhere near competitive over the coming years if this ruling comes into place, as they might be able to be by buying as many parts as they can from Red Bull. Serious changes potentially being made. Some teams, though, do not agree with it, and understandably so. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We're beginning here with Damon Hill and Max, just because Damon Hill is going to be gone from the Sky Sports F1 team. If you guys didn't see this news yesterday, I couldn't do a video yesterday. I was flying back and there was no option this time to make a video in the lounge. But yeah, here's Damon Hill and Brundle. Here's Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, of course, on the right-hand side. And it's just interesting timing. Of course, we know that Sky Sports change around their panel of who they bring in. Obviously, people are saying, oh, Danica Patrick's still there. Whether some of the pundits bring value, whether they don't. Look, Damon Hill has his opinions. I don't agree with all of them, obviously. I think on some things he's been on the money, some things he hasn't. But the timing on this is very interesting, right? Because we know that just a few days ago now, there was lots of talk from Max about British bias in the media. And around when some of those discussions were happening, Damon Hill was talking about how, you know, Max was driving like Dick Dastardly or whatever it was back at the Mexican Grand Prix, and various other comments, which may have been fair or may not have been fair. But we know that Max was definitely giving it large to the media, that lots of the press are biased in favour of the British drivers. That may be true in part. It's not true in the Dutch press, for example. But in the British press, that can be true. I don't know if Sky Sports felt somewhat pressured or threatened by that, because, you know, getting rid of Damon Hill, it's just interesting timing, isn't it? Because you'd think they might do this at the end of the season. It almost sounds like a firing, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It's a little bit strange from both parties. But, yeah, intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comments. More drama as well. So, this event, we talked about it the other day. F1 75 live at the O2. Now, I tried to get some tickets for this. I thought I might as well on the Amex pre-sale and then the next day as well. And I was on there, look, I wasn't on there bang on 5 o'clock. I think it was, what, 10 a.m. was it? In UK time, it was at 5 p.m. where I was in Thailand when the tickets were going to be going on sale. I wasn't there dead on time, but I was there pretty much on time, and I had no chance getting any tickets. There's been rumours as to how many tickets were actually sold, and I've not seen any legitimate individual that actually got a ticket. The only tickets I saw being received were those bought by resellers. I mean, these websites, it's so bad, honestly, getting tickets for any events nowadays. They just get bought up by bots immediately and then thrown on the resale site. And apparently, of the tickets available, I don't know how many there are, maybe 18,000 or something for this event, maybe more, maybe less, maybe slightly more, something in that like 18 to 22,000 tickets I think are potentially available. There are rumours that only a couple of thousand, maybe even that, are actually available, and that more tickets are going to be available down the line, or to other, you know, sponsors and stuff like this that are going to get most of the tickets to come along and attend the event. So it's all rather controversial, and, well, the tickets immediately went up on resale sites for just so much cash, it's absurd. And look, the way to beat the scalpers is just don't buy the tickets. That's how it is. And F1 have actually said that the resale tickets aren't valid. So if you buy one, or if like people who have bought them and look to resell them, those tickets will just be voided and then available for purchasing again on the site. But it's like, I can imagine that those tickets are just going to get bought up again by the bots again, and we're going to run this same saga for another time. Now, I did also mention it on the website that I did a bit of an FAQ here, F1, on what the event is actually going to be, and, well, what can we expect from the show. You can also watch it online as well, like it's going to be broadcast. There'll be a chance to see their respective liveries and the drivers who'll represent them. There's going to be interviews. They're going to be doing some other stuff. This is like a promo shot, right? Wow, car drives out in the center, and I'm sure it's going to look spectacular. But it is worthy of note that they literally say, F1, that none of these cars are going to be the real cars, which is a bit of a bummer, right? We know that Red Bull they often will not show their real car until their actual release, but it's just going to be the livery on a show car for all of the teams. So that's what Beretta, I think it was Beretta who wrote this, wasn't it? Article here on the F1 website. I got to scroll up a little bit. Yeah, here it is, Beretta. We'll have more from him actually in a second. But yeah, he says that the cars are just going to be liveries on show cars, and it's 26th to the 28th where testing happens, and we know that just a few days after this event, Ferrari are doing their own reveal. I think this is inevitable, but Ferrari have now basically confirmed this, that they're going to do, again, their own reveal for their own car. And it was inevitable, right? I mean, Ferrari did not want to dull their car reveal down to just get involved in what F1 are doing in London. They want to do their own reveal with their real car, with Lewis Hamilton there, obviously. So, you know, that's their plan. That's still going ahead. Speaking of that whole Hamilton-Ferrari thing, though, it will not be happening at the end of this season that Hamilton drives in a Ferrari post-Abu Dhabi test. There's just too many things he's got to do with Mercedes after that. However, Ferrari have allowed Carlos Sainz to do exactly that. This is pretty cool to see. I always like this type of stuff when drivers finish Abu Dhabi and in the tyre tests that follow, they drive their new car for next season effectively, and that's going to be the case here with Sainz and Williams. So pretty cool that Ferrari allowed this to happen and Williams have been able to make it work. It's not going to be true for Hamilton and Ferrari though, as we have discussed before. This is as well as special livery. I mean, it looks kind of similar to their other special livery, but yeah, there you go. That's the Williams for this weekend's Las Vegas Grand Prix, next weekend's Las Vegas Grand Prix. There were rumours though, the Williams aren't even going to make it. They're not even going to be there because their cars are too damaged. Now, I think this came from a debrief that James Vowles did where he basically said it's going to be a challenge to get the cars ready, but there was no real implication that Williams would actually just miss the race because they can't repair their cars. They may need to go back to older spec versions, but they will be racing in Las Vegas, and Barretto actually had a chat with Williams and got the conclusion that, yes, we sustained massive damage via the crashes in Brazil, but they're going to have both cars ready to go. No problems there. Problems for sure, but you know, it's not like they won't be able to race per current understanding. One other big interesting development of the day was this one. So Zhou Guanyu will no longer be on the grid next season. We know, of course, that Sauber are moving on from both Bottas and Zhou. They are going to get Bortoletto in. That's now confirmed, in addition to Nico Hülkenberg in that outfit going forwards. So, you know, Zhou had a career which wasn't the best. I was quite impressed with him in the first year, actually, with Alfa Romeo, as it was then. The last 2 years have not been good. Although, in fairness, at times he has had a far inferior version of the car than Bottas has done, but Bottas has cooked him bad, certainly this season and last season as well, and even to such an extent that he's getting, you know, catching strays from Franco Colapinto. However, Zhou will reportedly become Ferrari's reserve driver next year, and this is a pretty cool option for Zhou. I mean, realistically, is he getting back on the grid? Probably not, unless there's like mega Chinese money that comes in, which is going to promote him back to the grid somehow. He was part of the Ferrari Driver Academy, I believe, before. We know that Behrman's now going to Haas. We know that, you know, Schwartzman's doing his own thing. They don't have that many other options, Ferrari. So Zhou coming in there is actually a pretty cool idea. And I don't know, maybe there's a world in which he drives another Grand Prix for Ferrari. Then again, though, I will say, if in a hypothetical world, Ferrari have a driver unwell or can't race for whatever reason, the reality is they probably just get Behrman from the Haas and put him in the Ferrari. I would say that's the more likely outcome, is what they might potentially do. And then, you know, Haas would use their reserve. Could be Zhou in that case. But just something to think about hypothetically if that situation was to unfold. But speaking of Zhou, unfortunately for him, he was getting cooked by Franco Colapinto because Colapinto had made the following statements because he's been linked heavily to Red Bull, right? Linked to potentially not only be Yuki Tsunoda's teammate at RB, but potentially be Max Verstappen's teammate straight into the Red Bull. And reportedly, Helmut Marko isn't so convinced on this idea, but Christian Horner is. Horner wants to put Colapinto straight in the Red Bull, and that would be insane on some level, but maybe it works. Sometimes doing insane things in Formula 1 works exactly as you might, you know, wish it to in its best possible outcomes, but it would be pretty wild to do it, and there would be risk involved in putting Colapinto under the limelight like that. But Colapinto said the following: I don't care who is next to me, whether it's Verstappen or Zhou. I want to win and I want to be ahead of them. So, you know, it's a pretty damning comment to Zhou on some level. Now, I know what he means, obviously, because Verstappen is leading the championship. Zhou is basically last in the championship. He's actually not, because Bottas, despite being way better than Zhou this year, actually doesn't have as high of a race finish as Zhou got right at the start of the season for various reasons, and therefore Zhou's actually ahead of him in the championship. But, you know, the point is really whether it's the best driver or the worst, I want to win and I want to be ahead of them. And Zhou, you know, I guess he's just got to take that one on the chin, really, doesn't he? But yeah, the point still stands. Colapinto's like, yeah, I'm not going to be scared of racing Max. I feel like he can take him on. At the end of the day, yes, Albon has way more experience at Williams, but over the races that Colapinto's been there for, has he been faster than Albon? No, the numbers don't tell you that. And he's been very competitive with Albon for sure. But the argument will be, well, it's not like he's come in and immediately blown Albon out of the water. So, you know, what's he going to do against Max in a Red Bull? That's a challenge, obviously. So I'm still a little bit undecided on how good Colapinto will prove to be in this sport when we look back on this stint over the next couple of years. But of course, the reality still remains that Red Bull have to make a decision on their driver lineup. Of course, Perez's father, Antonio, Checo's father, Antonio, says, yeah, no problems at all. He's going to be there for the next couple of years. He said it. He plans to retire Red Bull. They gave him the chance. But I'm, of course, not so convinced, especially because Ralf Schumacher, now Ralf Schumacher says a lot of things, but he did say this, that he believes there's been a deal struck, basically, and it's not just Helmut Marko, but it's, you know, interest from higher parties that want Colapinto, and that could well be those involved with the decision-making from sponsors and other such elements, right? Because as we full well know, there is good money coming into Colapinto from the South American region, Argentina, massive over there, obviously, and there's a good reason why he might be a good replacement for Perez. So, yeah, lots of reasons pointing in that direction right now. But of course, the other possibility would be for Colapinto to go to RB, to not go straight into the Red Bull. It would be to go to their sister team instead, and either Lawson or Tsunoda would then get promoted. More likely Lawson with the way that things currently look. But let's talk about the situation with this whole team, because there's been lots of drama over the last few months, starting really here. I mean, we've heard it talked about even more so in the last couple of months when Daniel Ricciardo famously set the fastest lap in Singapore. Now, in hindsight, that does seem more like, well, Danny was going to be leaving. Nice little send-off, pit for the softs, get the fastest lap, set the lap record as well at Singapore because they made changes to the track layout. So, you know, nice little send-off for Ricciardo. But equally, that took a point away from Lando. Lando had dominated that Grand Prix and, yeah, nearly put it in the wall a couple of times, but he was miles ahead of Max. And he was getting fastest lap point as well. Ricciardo took that off him. In the grand scheme of the championship, is that going to make any difference? It's looking, you know, 0.1% likelihood that it will go down to the wire like that with the way that things currently look. But it's not impossible that Lando could bring a comeback here. Max has a couple of DNFs or something, and then all of a sudden Max wins by 1 point. Not impossible. That was a big drama back at the Singapore Grand Prix, but it's not just been that, because, you know, the theory went, effectively, that Horner came on the phone to Danny and said, yo, do you mind just sticking the softs on, getting this fastest lap point away from Lando? Which isn't really especially sporting when McLaren don't have a sister team to also pull the same tactic with. So Zach Brown said this in January. We have some work to do on the rules. I think the AB team is a real problem moving forward. I think co-ownership, you don't really have that in any other sport. It provides a lot of conflict of interest. Anytime you have an entity that owns two teams, which Red Bull do, an AB relationship, it starts to really compromise the integrity of sporting fairness. And, you know, we do see this occasionally. I wouldn't say we see it every Grand Prix, but we do see it on, you know, a handful of Grand Prix a season where there's some sort of Red Bull, RB, Racing Bulls, whatever, their B team, related on-track shenanigans where either, you know, a Racing Bulls driver will let Max pass very easily, or they won't fight as they might have done against another driver. And maybe it happens on other teams as well. But when you've got two teams owned by the same entity, in other sports, you don't get that, and Zach Brown's right. And there's been some debate on what we do about that, because had it not been for Red Bull taking over that outfit when they did, you know, they might have gone bankrupt, right? They might have gone insolvent. We might not have that team even existing on the grid. So on some level, fair play, Red Bull did a good thing keeping the sport alive, but nowadays it's not needed because there's so much interest in teams. We don't need Red Bull to own two teams to have 10 on the grid. There's so many other interested parties that would take that outfit over, but Red Bull don't want to sell it because they gain advantage by doing so, not just because they can either test new engine component designers as they've done in the past, new drivers, new parts parts in general, and obviously on track occasionally it can prove to be somewhat beneficial. You say, look, Yuki, can you just hold up Hamilton for a few laps or whatever, right? It's happened before in somewhat controversial circumstances. So the rumor has it things are going to get harder for these teams. Now, Haas are also included, and honestly, Haas might be hit harder by this than RB would, but RB are still involved as well. So customer teams like RB or Haas, if they finish P5 or higher in the World Constructors' Championship, all of the non-listed parts, which they can take from their basically owner team, obviously not quite the case for Haas with their Ferrari relationship, but certainly for RB and Red Bull, after 3 years in that situation, they will then have to design all of their own parts, making things substantially more challenging for those teams. Now, it honestly mainly affects Haas, hypothetically, and the man who is most against this is actually Ayo Komatsu, team principal of Haas. Red Bull and Racing Bulls probably aren't happy with it either, but it seems that Aston Martin, Alpine and Williams are lobbying against this rule and demanding a higher percentage of in-house production rights. So they want, because they, by some parts, they have done from other teams, at least, Williams, Aston Martin, certainly from Mercedes in the past, but they are moving in a direction they want more in-house production, and the current ruling does not necessarily promote that necessarily. Haas would then struggle, however, if they were to finish P5 or higher, so instead they're going to do a ruling where it takes place over a number of years, where, if you finish P5, then in the next 3 years, you've then got to, start building these things themselves. And Haas aren't going to be happy with that because that's not the Haas model. Now, it seems like Racing Bulls, they're not completely opposed to this, but it just means that the team doesn't really want to finish in that position. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you're Racing Bulls, you're probably not too unhappy because how often are you really finishing fifth? I mean, you can finish fifth, but the way the championship looks, it's Red Bull, it's McLaren, it's Mercedes, it's Aston Martin, and it's Ferrari, right? So those are the 5 teams. So theoretically, in the next few years, Aston are building big. They're expected to be a top 5 team in F1. Mercedes aren't going anywhere, you'd think. And then you've got Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, the top 3 of this year as it stands. So realistically, if you're Racing Bulls, you're thinking, well, I'll get P6 and I'll maintain the situation as it stands. And maybe Haas can feel the same way. So in the immediate term, it doesn't seem like this is going to make a massive amount of difference, but it certainly is a step on the road towards Zak Brown's vision of a non-AB team relationship happening, because they're starting to try and find a way to pry apart the co-ownership of these teams, at least in some regard. Now, whether they go one step further for the 2026 Concord Agreement and they say, hey, this is no longer allowed entirely, rather than small steps like this, that is another possibility. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Just one final thing I thought was kind of interesting, really, was that we know that Hamilton's been working as a producer on the new F1 film. I think it's just called F1. And I thought it was quite fascinating, the insight and the level to which Hamilton is providing analysis here. This was just a pretty good read. So Hamilton saw part of the movie and he gave us a critique of how the drivers actually do things. The level of specifics that he gave us, like in Silverstone in turn 3, you're in 2nd gear. He could hear with his ear that we were in 3rd gear in the film, and he was like, yeah, I'm not so happy about that. So and as he says, sometimes we don't like to hear some of the things that Hamilton says because it costs us money to fix, but we're all in on the project. And this I thought was another one that I'm hoping they do get right. As he says, when you finish a race, especially in Singapore where it's hot, the guys can barely get out of the car. They're so exhausted they lose 10 pounds of water weight, and he says he has to lay down for a few minutes before he can get up and do the press interviews. And that's all the drivers. That is something that it would be nice to see reflected, right? If we see Brad Pitt hop out of the car and he looks like he's just been out for a Sunday drive and he wipes the sweat off his brow and celebrates immediately with the fans after, the Qatar Grand Prix, you're going to know that that's not realistic, right, if you actually watch Formula 1. So I think these are some nice touches, and that's from Jay Bruckheimer, of course, who is producing the entire thing. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.